Next time you send a text or do a quick search on Google, spare a thought for the planet. It might surprise you, but there's a hidden cost to your online lifestyle. It's driven by giant computers locked away in faraway warehouses. They all need energy to keep them going and energy to cool them down. Generating that energy means carbon emissions. In fact, the latest figures say that by 2020, emissions from computer servers will match those from the airline industry. Susan Watts asked some of the biggest names in the business what they're going to do about it.
Today's world moves on data, and we access that data using ever smaller, ever more efficient devices.
I need the GPS capability.
To surf the web portably. It has email that I can check whenever I want.
It allows us to keep tabs on our Google Reader.
Well, I'm really excited about quicker web browser access.
But these are just the front end of the internet. And this is the back end of the internet, rack upon rack of computers called servers. They don't call these places server farms for nothing. They're huge. When this one was installed, it was the largest in the world. Now it's just typical. We've come to IBM's Silicon Valley Research Center in California to talk to Dr. Chu. He's a 35-year veteran of computer networks. He thinks people simply haven't made the connection between what they do every day online and the power they're using.
Every time you send an instant message to your friend, you're using energy.
Just after IBM built its giant server farm, a group of computer scientists down the road in Stanford formed a startup to cash in on the growth in computer networking, specializing in the technologies behind today's internet. At the height of the dot-com boom, Cisco was briefly the world's most valuable company, and it's big enough today to have its own tram stop. And a reception straight out of The Wizard of Oz. Hello there. Hi, I've come to see Paul Marcoux.
Sure, he's already in the telepresence room in Embarcadero.
Thank you.
This is a 21st century manufacturing. This is our laboratory. This is one of about 1,500 that are within the Cisco organization.
The cooling here is critical. Temperatures would skyrocket from the normal 60 degrees Fahrenheit without it.
If there's an error on the air conditioning system, it will reach 120 degrees in here within 2 or 3 minutes.
In fact, the industry is so energy hungry, it's already being compared to the airline business. But this industry says it's getting to grips with the problem earlier. But they'll have to move fast. The latest official estimates say that by 2020, the world's computer servers will match the carbon emissions of the airline industry. They already match the emissions given out by the car manufacturing industry. The body set up to green the industry decided they had to sort out the problem, but not out of eco-concern.
We did a survey in the Green Grid of a number of our members and their IT organizations. And we found that there was a large number of people that became very concerned about power when they brought a new rack of servers in, and there was no more power to be had. I mean, they maxed out the power that they could bring.
But a lot of companies still insist on putting their data centers where they've built them historically, even though there's no energy. One plan, called Follow the Moon, is for companies to shift their active data centers around the globe to seek out cheap, abundant energy.
They move through the network their entire operations to areas to where it's always nighttime. The reason for that is because the local utilities have a very different cost model for their energy, and it's also not only less expensive, but it's also more important to maintain a certain level of efficiency for the utility. And so by moving these loads strategically around the planet, you save energy.
One problem is that computing power is cheap, so companies buy a new box for each new task rather than reprogramming the computers they have to do more. Software called virtualization fixes this by making each server run several tasks. This harks back to when companies had one mainframe computer doing everything.
Well, actually, what's happening is that you are now beginning to centralize the data centers so that in the data center you can have, like in here, you have 10,000 servers. And then within the 10,000 servers, you can run many workloads and you can share more efficiently using virtualization, which is one of the big green initiatives that IBM has undertaken.
Google is well known for its commitment to all things green. Here on the Google campus, there's a bike share system with free bikes outside every building so the Googlers who work here can get around. The security guards here drive in electric carts, and there's a carpool scheme with plug-in hybrid vehicles for anyone who wants to borrow one. Oh, and by the way, the electricity to recharge these cars comes from solar panels mounted on the roof here. But is all this just PR bluster, a sop to consumers who are beginning to demand that their computing providers think green? Google's green czar appeared defensive.
All of the IT equipment in the world, or information and communications technology in the world, consumes on the order of 2% of the world's electricity.
That compares, though, to, say, the car manufacturing industry, or within a few years, to the level of emissions you might get from the airline industry. So it's a small percentage, but lots of small percentages could make a difference.
Right, and I think if the IT industry does not work over the next 5, 10, 15 years to continue to make the equipment much more energy efficient, to look for greener sources of energy to power it, that there could well be a major problem.
Google says it is tackling the emissions problem by seeking new sources of renewable energy, but they're spending only a few tens of millions of dollars. And it turns out they've developed their own version of virtualization software to pursue greener computing, but they've decided to keep that secret.
We have a competitive advantage, we believe, over our major competition that we don't want to just give them. And that's a trade-off that any business that's in business has to make.
Google's latest mission statement is to organize the world's information, making it universally usable and accessible. What that means is all your information on its computers. How much energy will that take to run? Google isn't a member of Green Grid, the industry body, but then perhaps that doesn't matter so much. Even Green Grid's efficiency drives might actually be more about selling boxes.
I personally believe there's only 3 reasons people do things. One is to make money, the other is to save money, and the third is government regulation. I mean, at the end of the day, that's why businesses do anything. And, but I think what the Green Grid is doing today is working with the government to try to develop the standards and the programs so that...
And perhaps he's given the game away there. True, all these efficiencies save money and cut carbon emissions, but it may actually be fear that's driving the companies that make servers. Fear that if they don't make these changes on their terms, the government will do it for them. After all, if we go on demanding faster access to more data online, building power stations to cope, and aim to keep emissions at bay, something's got to give. Susan Watts, BBC News, California.
Susan Watts reporting there. And that's all from Reporters for this week. From me, Kasia Madeira. Goodbye for now.